Hey, I'm Mr. Terry, a high school history teacher. Welcome back to another History Teacher Reacts video. Now, most of you know me as a history teacher, but I don't know if I told you, I also minored in geography and I'm also licensed to teach geography. The reason I'm telling you this is I am heading to a channel that I should have covered a long time ago, and that is Geography Now. And I also want to get involved with Geography Now by covering a region I do not cover enough, and that is India. So we're going to be checking out this video, and I'm excited to add any kind of commentary that I can. I absolutely love Indian history. One of my favorite courses that I took in college was a modern history of India course. And it starts about the time of the Mughal Empire. And the Mughal Empire, because I had learned about it in that class, is one of my favorite empires to talk about. They are fascinated, and by the West standards, is completely understudied and underappreciated. But anyway, that's just one of the things that has always gotten me into Indian history and Indian geography. All right, the original video link is down below. This is a very popular video, so make sure that you have given it a view, a like, a subscribe, and take a look down below in the description. You might find some other things that you might be interested to follow along with me: gaming channel, Discord server, other fun things like that. All right, let's get started. All right, we got a pretty long video at 19 minutes. Let's get started.
You've been waiting a long time for this episode. I'm just gonna say straight up, you all know India is incredibly complex and diverse. Even Indians have trouble understanding their own country. Obviously, I won't be able to scratch even the surface in this episode, but I'll try my best.
Naturally.
A lot of you Indian geography peeps have helped me along the way, so thank you. And without further ado, let's begin.
Heck yeah. So geography now, I'm hoping they
Hey everybody, I'm your host
they bring in
Barbie. This
history
place
and stuff.
doesn't even need much of
You
an
can't separate
introduction.
history and
Everybody has
geography.
heard of India. It's big, it's loud, it's colorful, and most importantly, it has a plethora of confusing territorial anomalies that I just can't wait to cover.
It is geographically diverse. Political.
There's an old saying, India is a place where everyone is in a hurry, but no one is ever on time. First of all, India is located in South Asia, right on the Indian and Arabian Seas and the Bay of Bengal, bordered by 6 other countries, so close to 7, but that land bridge between Sri Lanka got wiped away like 600 years ago by a cyclone. India is divided into 29 states and 7 union territories, with the capital New Delhi, which acts as its own administrative unit, located in the capital territory. Keep in mind, New Delhi is actually just the name of one of the districts in the capital territory, made up of 11. The largest city, however, is actually Mumbai, with New Delhi, Bangalore or Bengaluru, and Hyderabad following after. However, the 4 busiest airports are Delhi Indira Gandhi International, Mumbai's Chhatrapati Shivaji International, Bengaluru's Kempe Gowda International, and Chennai International in the south. You know why I'm smiling. This is my favorite part of any episode we ever make. Territorial anomaly time. India.
Cool. Yeah, India is a subcontinent too. If you look at a map of early history, talking like millions of years ago, India was not attached to Asia. It was its own basically continent, and it is moving north and kind of has smashed into southern Asia, and that's where the Himalaya mountains come from. And it's from what I understand, in plate tectonic speeds, it has smashed so hard that's why the Himalayas are so tall. But interestingly, I believe the Himalayan range is actually one of the younger mountain ranges, and it just has to do with the ferocity, if you can imagine that, of tectonic geographic speed. But that's what had created that. So because of that, smashing up there, it's going to give it some very interesting geographic features and climate features, which I know I'll get to.
Loaded with strange borders and deliciously complex demarcation lines. First of all, what exactly is a union territory? In the simplest way I can put this, union territories are places that are too distinct to be incorporated into a state, but too small to have their own local governments. The first one, of course, is the Delhi National Capital Territory, where the capital lies. Chandigarh is a post-independent city constructed to replace Lahore as the capital of the Punjab area after it was split up between India and Pakistan. Then you have the island territories, the smallest one, Lakshadweep, and the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. The Andaman Islands being home to one of the last uncontacted people groups on the planet.
I've done a video covering that. The Sentinel people, that's that island that you've heard of where people have died coming ashore of it because they immediately been killed by this group that has largely been disconnected from society for like tens of thousands of years. It's fascinating. I covered a video on it before. If you look at Sentinel Island, I can't exactly remember, but I've done a video covering that. Watch it for sure.
Sentinelese tribe, whom have been hostile to visitors and are therefore left alone, as well as the Nicobar Islands, which actually used to be a short-lived colony of Denmark. Finally, the 3 remaining territories are former European colony towns and ports: Dadra and Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu, which are separated by about 200 kilometers across the Gulf of Kambat, and the most confusing Union territory, the French-speaking Puducherry, which is actually split up between 4 district cities across India.
I don't know.
Karikal,
I wonder what the
Mahe,
name
Yanaon,
Puducherry, where
and
that came
Pondicherry.
from.
Pondicherry is strange because it has
Pondicherry,
11 enclaves within the Tamil Nadu state. Oh, and in this area, you can also find the experimental hippie-ish commune with a little bit of controversy. Look it up. Oh, and don't forget, here, the eastern states, also known as the Seven Sisters, are connected by this incredibly narrow 27-kilometer wide pathway known as the Siliguri Corridor. This pathway is like a crucial artery that completes the India puzzle. Or so you would think. Now let's discuss the juicy stuff. Now, in the China episode, I already talked about the disputed areas with India, such as Aksai Chin and Arunachal Pradesh, the latter pretty much just belonging to India as it's almost completely inhabited and operated by Indians. So let's move to the other disputes. Now, as of 2015, the Bangladesh episode is already outdated, as India and Bangladesh have finally come to an agreement over the frighteningly complex former enclave-exclave dispute. In the end, India only lost about 40 square kilometers of land to Bangladesh, and now only a few enclaves and exclaves exist.
Those are like where you have like a part of your state that's completely surrounded by another state. There's a handful of those around the world, and they're kind of fascinating. Just imagine being in a country, but you're actually disconnected from the rest of your country. That would be a political nightmare and trade nightmare.
Now let's head north. Now, when you try to draw the shape of India, you might want to be careful which depiction you use. Some might use this picture, some might use this, some might use this, and those that don't really study very well might use this. The point is, the whole area is like the most heavily militarized, diplomatically stressed out region on the planet. It's already had like 4 wars in the past half century. Basically, India, Pakistan, and to some extent China all want the entire area for themselves, although it's more of like a Pakistan-India thing.
Yeah, they never figured it out when Pakistan and India split up back in the 1940s. They pretty much let it unsettled and kind of left it to regional, disputes, I guess. British, I mean, remember were the big ones, if you didn't know, were part of that. This all used to be a colony of the British, and they were leaving. They basically want to get out as quickly as possible. And they hastily did some of these territorial disputes, like you'll see with Kashmir. And yeah, it's been a war zone for decades now. And I don't know if it's going to end any soon. I'd have to get up on the current politics of it. But yeah, you can look on a map. It's, jointly kind of occupied. And the people there are divided. That's like the most divided part of it.
China episode, we already discussed the Chinese disputes with India, so I won't cover those in this episode. If you want to learn more, just watch the China episode.
Chinese
but
involved.
Anyway, this entire area was a former domain known as the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir that was under royal Maharaja rulers all the way up until independence. Currently, this place is split up by this fenced-off militarized line known as the line of control between India and Pakistan. Why is this? Well, in the quickest way I can put this,
okay, the British are out. We get to take your land.
No, we want to be an independent princely state.
We're supposed to take your land, and majority of your people are Muslim, just like us, even though your ruler is Hindu as well.
Yeah, it's
India?
super. Yeah,
If
I remember
you help
that
me,
now.
I'll let you secede my territory to your land with autonomy. Deal. Your problem now. I love how Mike played India. He totally represents India. Oh, and keep in mind, Pakistan's capital, Islamabad, is less than 80 kilometers away from all that drama.
Right.
The line of control meanders through the mountains until it stops at a point called NJ9842. This is where things get really crazy, because from there you hit the Siachen Glacier, the second longest non-polar glacier in the world, and this is pretty much the dead man zone. After point NJ9842, you hit the actual ground position line, a series of military outposts that extend all the way to the Chinese border. That means everything in this area is ground zero for the Indo-Pak tension. And the crazy thing is there's actually literally small towns of normal regular civilians living in these areas high up in the mountains, many of which just go about daily life, going to work and raising their families.
Beautiful area.
Otherwise, they have a river dispute with Nepal and various river islands disputed with Bangladesh. Outside of all the dispute stuff though, India not only has the world's second largest road network and 3 of the world's top 10 megacities and their own space program, but they also have a copious abundance of landmarks and notable sites, way too many to list, but some of the ones that you guys, the Indian geography peeps, have told me to mention include places like the abandoned Danush Kodi Ghost City, Golconda Fort, the 4 pillars of Charminar, the Ajanta Buddhist art caves, the Ellora monolithic ruins, Mandu Fortress, the Golden Temple, which feeds over 100,000 people a day, the Gol Gumbaz Mausoleum, the Kalavantin Durg Post, the ruins of Hampi, the hill forts of Rajasthan, Shatrunjaya Hill, which is basically like a mecca for Jains, the Temple of the Bodhi Tree, Jal Mahal, Bangad Fort, the most haunted place in India, Mahabhat Maqbara,
then the
and keep in
Muslim
mind,
stuff.
just like in China, you can find a Great Wall of India India in Rajsamand. There's also the Paritala Anjaneya temple with the largest statue in India depicting Hanuman, and at over
I haven't seen
150
that.
acres,
Okay, that
the
one I
Sri
know. That one,
Rangan
that's
Athaswamy
beautiful.
temple, the largest Hindu temple in the world. Oh, yeah,
Beautiful.
and there's also that building with the stuff in the thing, whatever. Anyway, we could go on
Yeah,
for centuries talking about
mausoleum.
India's rich constructed domicile, but what it lies on top
Or on my
of
video
is
at the
even more
beginning, you'll see my Lego Taj Mahal up on my
Now, don't make this
my
mistake.
shelf behind me.
I'm going to India. All I need are my sandals and sunscreen.
Nope. Super diverse.
Now, as the 7th largest country in land area, India has a wide range of landscapes, climates, and elevations that all contrast from one corner to the other. First of all, let's talk about the north. India sits on the Indian tectonic plate that essentially smashed into the Eurasian plate, which in return created the largest mountain range in the world, the Himalayas.
Talked about
The
that
force is so
earlier.
strong that it's estimated that the Himalayas grow about 2.4 inches or 6.1 centimeters
is
every
fast.
year. There's also where you can find Kanchenjunga, the
One of
tallest
the- I think
mountain
the
in India,
fastest
or
that
the
I
third in the
have heard of.
world, right
Correct
on
me
the
if I'm
border of
wrong on
Nepal.
that being
Keep
the
your
fastest
eye on
growing
these
mountain range.
mountains. These are pretty much the source of most of India's major rivers that give life to the whole country. That's why India takes these mountains so seriously. You can also find the largest
life
natural
force,
lake,
life
Wular,
blood,
up
you
in the
know,
Jammu
source, like
Kashmir
their
area.
heart.
Below the Himalayas, you reach the North Indian River Plain, sometimes referred to as the Indus Ganga. This is the most fertile part of
Indo-Gangetic
India, where the
plain.
most important rivers like the Ganges and its tributaries flow. Heading a little south, you reach the Satpura and Vindhya ranges that pretty much divide North India from South India. On each side, you get the West and East
Deccans
Ghat
and the
Mountains,
Ghats.
which in return creates this massive triangle thing called
Deccan,
the Deccan
I mean.
Plateau. This place is moderately forested, especially in the east in the Chotra Nagpur Plateau, where you get a section of the swampy Sundarbans
Big
that they share with
delta there.
Bangladesh. Check out the Bangladesh episode. Head a little west and you get the dry Thar Desert along the border with Pakistan, as well as the Rann of Kutch, known as the Salt Desert. And finally, the only active volcanic area would be the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, with Barren Island having actual conical eruptions
Not on the
and
land
Banatan having
itself,
tame mud volcanoes.
mainland.
Now here's the thing, although India has a relatively high population density, they do relatively well with maintaining their ecological footing. In fact, in 2016, they beat a world
very
record
green.
by planting, disputably, 50 million trees in one day.
Very
They've also
green
agreed to
that way.
reforest about 12%
As compared to somewhere like Eastern China with their pollution. I mean, the city centers of India have it too, but as comparison, very green place, green revolution kind of.
their country by 2030. The most heavily forested area being the 7 sister states in East India. Now, one of the factors that contributes to this would be the fact that India has the lowest meat consumption in the world, with the
They don't
highest
eat beef.
population percentage of vegetarians
Or
at around
Hindus don't eat beef.
40%, most of whom are lacto-vegetarians that consume milk products. By the way, in India, when buying groceries, this label means vegetarian and this one means not vegetarian. Nonetheless, the remainder of the population does typically eat some kind of animal protein, mostly in the forms of seafood or chicken, but almost never beef
Love
or
the chicken
pork,
dishes,
unless if you
man.
are part of the Muslim or Christian
Curry
minorities
chicken,
scattered throughout the West and East areas. Now, let's talk about the role of cattle, shall we? India has more cattle and livestock
These
than
are great
anywhere else in the
stories.
world at around 330 million. And it's interesting because since they have prevalent Hindu traditions, the killing of cows is illegal in many of the states except for a few, and each state has varying degrees of punishment for committing intentional cow slaughter. Keyword intentional. Cows accidentally get hit by cars all the time.
They're
Once
all
a cow
over.
is too old to produce milk, it typically is released into the open to die naturally in the wild, ideally. Nonetheless, male cattle get it much worse, as they are deemed as kind of useless. Some places use them as draft animals for labor, some religious sects use them as sacrifices, but otherwise they are typically sold to the underground market for beef or hides.
You can see where their animal consumption is much lower. You have beef, which is, I don't know if beef is the most consumed animal in the world, maybe. But with the Hindu majority in a nation of 1 billion people, you can see where that comes from. I remember hearing stories from my India history professor saying how they said they let the cows go out and they cause traffic jams all the time. Like it can totally slow stuff down because sometimes the cows, they'll be, stubborn about it, but they don't want to harm the cows, right? They don't want to like beat them or something or kill them to get them out of the way because it's against their traditions. It's kind of fascinating to have that kind of thing where in America, that thing would have been slaughtered and eaten within the day.
To this day, there are about 6 times as many female cows as male cattle in India. So that means, yeah, something's happening
let
to
them
the
die
males.
out easier.
Nonetheless, India does have the
Because of
third
the
highest
milking.
carbon emission rate after China and the US, 4th if you consider the EU. However, emission per capita, they rank pretty low at only about 2 kilotons per person. Contrast that with Qatar at about 40. There are 94 national parks, 501 animal sanctuaries across the country where you can find some of the national animals like the peacock, the Ganges River dolphin, the king cobra, the
Ganges,
Indian elephant,
what?
and the
There's a Ganges River dolphin?
with Qatar at about 40. There are 94 national
have my
parks,
cough.
501 animal sanctuaries across the country where you can find some of the national animals like the peacock, the Ganges River dolphin,
This is fresh water? Whoa. Okay, I gotta learn more about this. Give me some info down in the comments about this Ganges River dolphin. I had no idea. Maybe I'm wrong about it.
The king cobra, the Indian elephant, and the highest population of Bengal tigers in the world,
beautiful
which are
animal.
all highly protected. India also
Thank
has
you
the
for
most
protecting
irrigated
them.
land in the world, which allows them to become the #1 producer of multiple products like millet, bananas, lemons, limes, mangoes, ginger, chickpeas, milk, butter, fennel, jute, and about 75% of the world's spices alone come from India.
Don't tell the Europeans, they're going to show up. Interestingly, too, India was, Indus Valley civilization specifically, first civilization to cultivate cotton.
Speaking of which, food! Typically, you can find the staples roti, chapati, and naan in the
I
north,
love naan,
idli and
man.
dosa in the south, and everybody eats rice. The more commonly commercialized Indian foods that we in the West grew up knowing, like samosas, tikka masala, tanduris, and my favorite Indian dish, palak paneer.
I know it's
These
not
usually come from the northern
purely
regions
native.
of India. Seriously, India, you took spinach and made it fat. I love you guys. Otherwise, the West
I
is
love
mostly
Indian
known for their
food.
chutneys and pickled foods, as well as beef, since
Just
there's a
it's
high number
different.
of Muslims and
Like
Christians.
what we have in the
The
West
South
a lot.
uses
Different
a lot more
spices,
coconut
different
and has some of
smells.
the best curries like porials, sambras, rasams, and tutus.
There's
And
so
the
much
East is
more
known
I
for
need to
having the
try,
best
though.
desserts
I'm
like
a
peda,
novice.
mishti doi, rasgulla, or shondesh. Speaking of which, India is so diverse and complex that sometimes even Indian people need translators when going to different states.
There's
It's
a lot
about
of
to get 10 times
languages.
more confusing in about 3, 2, 1.
Demographics.
Shashi
How many
Tharoor once
languages
said,
are
in
there
India,
total?
we celebrate the commonality of major differences. We are a land of belonging rather than blood. First of all, India has a population of about 1.3 billion people and is the second most populous country in the world after China, with about 18% of the world's population. About
18.
72% of the country is Indo-Aryan and a quarter are Dravidian, and the majority of the remainder are Mongoloid, Asian, and other people groups. They also use the Indian rupee as their currency. They use the Type
Gandhi.
C, D, and M plug outlets, and they drive on the left side of the road. By the way, technically it's illegal for these banknotes to leave the country, but you guys
Thanks,
have sent me
Britain.
a lot of them for fan mail for Fan Friday videos, so I don't want to go to jail again. Now keep in mind, those statistics that I just mentioned are
before.
incredibly generalized. Of the Indo-Aryan and Dravidian communities, there are about 2,000 different ethno-linguistic people groups in India, with about 645 district indigenous tribes, 52 major ones. So obviously we can't cover them all, but what we do know is that the north is very different from the south. For
Well, I mean, historically speaking, India has only been unified. Even when you say completely unifying the whole subcontinent, that's like almost never. But when you go back to way ancient empires, see, I don't know how much they get into history on this channel, but going back to like Mauryan Empire, Gupta Empire, those were the first of the empires that unified large portions of India. Then eventually Mughal Empire and Britain. But for as long as India has been settled, which is as early as any civilized societies, if you want to use classical definitions for how old it is very rarely ever been unified. A lot of its diversity and natural protection, especially from outside of the Indian subcontinent. So that's why it's, again, so diverse, and why a religion like Hinduism, which is a largely conglomeration of a lot of different beliefs from a lot of different parts of India, and come together and have this incredibly diverse religion that's hard to even define what it is.
one, the north mostly speaks in languages that are all related to the Indo-Aryan branch, with languages like Hindi, Bengali, Punjabi, and Gujarati, whereas the south speaks a completely unintelligible Dravidian branch with languages like
So that's-
Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, and Kannada.
That's largely where the divide has been. The northern part, very different from the south, because like he was saying earlier, if you're paying attention to the geography, you have mountain ranges and a whole different climate zone in the south, but in the north, you have that very temperate climate of the rivers, like the Ganges that come out of the Himalayas. So it's almost like India is like two Indias, really, culturally, geographically.
Canada.
Otherwise, there's also pockets of Sino-Tibetan and Austroasiatic languages spoken in the far north and east.
Wait, so how do they all, like, communicate with each other?
Bro.
Great question. Although India does not have an official language, there are 22 recognized national languages, and of these, 2 are the most prevalent, taught in schools, and used by government officials: Hindi and English.
A lot
And
of
very
English
often, these
still.
2 are like mixed mid-sentence. It's weird. Don't be surprised if you hear someone speaking Hindi and then suddenly finishing off in English. It's like,
It's not good to big worse this. And I was like, but this, and I was like trying to, like, why are you even trying to do that?
I know, right? And the washing machine, I told them, but I said, a Bob Saget with a chainsaw. Now, of course, let's discuss the one thing that goes hand in hand with India: Hinduism. About 80% of India claims to be Hindu, or at least part of the Hindu practicing community. Now, we don't have time to explain everything about the tenets and multi-layered philosophies and practices
so
of
dense.
Hinduism. If you want to know, just talk to a Hindu person. But basically, one thing you do need to know is that Hindu-driven ideologies pretty much dominate most of life in India, everything from family to business. You will see colorful, mesmerizing shrines, temples, statues,
Beautiful
and rituals being performed
art and
everywhere, even
architecture.
in public. On the Bharat Mata, the mother of India, statues are everywhere. She's like the symbol of India. The largest Hindu pilgrimage, the Kumbh Mela, happens every 3 years, rotating between 4 cities, in which the adherents bathe in the Ganges River and enjoy a massive festival with tens of millions of people. Like, seriously, you can practically see it happening from space. Now, a controversial topic in relation to Hinduism would be the caste system, which is basically a belief that people are born into a socioeconomic life that they are destined to serve into. Today, however, the system is more fluid and loose from what it used to be from a long time ago, and thanks to economic reforms, anybody with enough drive can kind of move up the social ladder regardless of birth. Nonetheless, India is home to every major...
Look for another video or something on the caste system, but it's a fascinating thing that blends politics, economics, social classes, and religion all into one. It's pretty fascinating that way, and unlike a lot of other things we see and structures that we see in history.
Religion in the world, even a few Jews, including the B'nai Menashe, an indigenous group that claimed to be one of the lost tribes of Israel. In fact, Judaism and Christianity actually had a head start in India way before it even kicked off in Europe. As tradition holds, Cochin or Malabar Jews...
Yeah, that's interesting how that happens. Like, you've heard of Ethiopia, right? Kingdom of Axum, which developed Christianity like during Roman times, like Western Roman times they came out there. So Christianity and Judaism too, getting along those Silk Road routes, right? From Roman Empire age coming over into India, that's where that would have come along and develop little pockets all throughout Asia. Not a lot of people know about that because they were pretty small insular communities.
Migrated around 1000 BC to trade during the times of King Solomon, and in 53 AD, Thomas, the apostle of Jesus, arrived in what is now the state of Kerala to establish the first church in India. Today, most Christians are found in the southwest and far east Seven Sisters
Port
regions.
cities.
India also holds the highest population of Sikhs, Jains, and Zoroastrians, mostly found in the north, and the second largest Muslim population in the world after Indonesia. Most Muslims are populated around the northwest areas by Pakistan or in the east by Bangladesh. Oh, and don't forget the Buddhists. In fact, Buddhism actually started in India.
There.
Today, the Dalai Lama even takes refuge in Tezpur in the state of Assam.
Yeah, Buddhism, a lot of people think like, oh, it's like a Chinese religion, right? Well, no. The Buddha was born and developed, and the whole philosophy and immediate groups developed in northern India and found success, just like we were talking about, on trade routes that connected India to other parts of Asia, to Central Asia and East Asia, where it gained a lot more popularity. And a major reason for that would be that the Hindu caste system is was already so ingrained by 1 or 2,000 years, basically, in India, that, you know, a new belief system like Buddhism, which rejected caste, basically, did not fit in with the ingrained society, especially with the higher elites, which gained a lot of their power and their justification for rule through their caste that they were born into. But if you went into a place like China, where you didn't have that caste structure, it would be something adopted a lot better, especially by lower caste people or class people, I should say, when you're talking about somewhere like China or in like Southwestern Asia.
Oh, that was a lot of information. Okay, so by now you can probably get a grasp of how incredibly mixed and diversified India's population is, but what exactly holds the country together? Well, for one, you kind of have to understand Indian history, which will take way too long to explain, but in the quickest way I can put it, Indus Valley, Maurya and Gupta empires, southern empires, Golden Age, Middle Kingdoms, a ton of new religions come flocking in, the north fell to the Delhi Sultanate, the south became the Vijayanagara Empire, the Mughal Empire starts, British East India Company, direct British rule, nationalist movements, independence, republic, economic liberalization in 1991, and here we are today.
Vijaya.
Essentially, India used to be made up of around 500 smaller royal princely states, and when the British came in, they kind of exploited them to manage such a huge population.
They did. So like the British in their colonial era usually ruled indirectly. That was their way to do it. So rather than provide direct government over territories, it is in a bunch of places, they would find high-ranking people inside of those nations and get their loyalty by giving them, you know, trade deals or just privileged positions. It's kind of a I scratch your back, you scratch my thing, so they could rule indirectly. So you'd have these Raja princes that would do largely, you know, the bidding of the British, and that let them maintain power and also have a privileged position the same time, and that's how Britain did things. They did eventually, though, take direct control after the Sepoy Rebellion, after India's rebellion in the mid 19th century, where they will rule a lot more direct for about 100 years, from like 1850s to pretty much till their independence, and then after World War II in the 1940s.
Although India is a democratic federal republic and the largest democracy in the world,
Largest
the old
democracy in
royal
the world.
families still exist today, and although they have no political power, they hold high positions of influence in their communities across India. So today, technically,
That'll
you
never
could
go away.
meet someone that would be considered an Indian prince or princess. Nonetheless, the biggest thing that really united Indians in the past 2 centuries would probably be their hatred of British rule. It was kind of like,
Well, this is not cool.
yep.
What do you say you and I work together in a
Exactly.
in this thing?
I don't like you, you don't like me, but hey, we hate the
Essentially,
British
one
more.
good thing you could say that came out of imperialism was that it kind of stopped all the internal
By the way, in the India flag, I don't know if I can talk about it, that was a cotton spinning wheel. Due to their, their industry.
squabbling and unifying the
Manufacturing.
groups towards one common goal, to get rid of imperialism. Today, Indians are just proud to be Indian. I mean, a Tamil soccer player can get cheered on by a Rajasthani. A Punjabi pop star can sell out tickets in Orissa. Speaking of which, all Indians love movies and music. India has the second
Bollywood.
largest film industry in terms of volume, pumping out nearly
Bollywood's
2,000
sick.
films per year. Surprisingly, Nigeria pumps out more. However, the box office revenues gross out at only about $2 billion annually compared to Hollywood at over $10 billion. But still, it's impressive. And keep in mind, it's not just Bollywood, but it's also Tollywood, Gollywood,
20%,
Collywood, Pollywood, and so on. There's like 20 different woods in India. Like every movie in India has at least one scene where everybody breaks out in song, and there's
True,
almost
I've seen
always
that.
a happy ending. Unfortunately, mainstream media has also put an aesthetic strain on many of the people, as it's almost become an obsession to be light or fair-skinned, causing people to go so far as to buy skin bleaching products. Some other controversies include things like illiteracy
need to
being
do
an
that,
issue in
people.
many parts of the country, especially in the rural areas.
I wish
but I
you
mean,
didn't
come
need
on,
to.
when your country has literally hundreds of different writing systems, go figure. I mean, give them a break. Also, many of you guys, the Indian geography peeps, have asked me to bring awareness to the fact that India does unfortunately have some of the highest rates of human trafficking and child slavery. The government is trying to crack down and culture is slowly being reformed, but for now, it's a sad reality that still does exist. Hey, here at GN, we talk about the good and the bad. I'm just saying. Otherwise, sports do definitely tie everyone together as well, especially cricket, the national sport.
Yeah,
Even though they also
I
used to
love
do really
cricket,
well
man.
in field hockey. India also has a lot of their own indigenous sports like Dopkel in Assam, bull racing in Kerala, Insuknar, rod pushing in Mizoram, and Malakamba, the strange pole yoga gymnastics thing in the south. Otherwise, some
Whoa.
notable people from India or of Indian descent might include people like Siddhartha Gautama or the Buddha,
Siddhartha.
Mahavir, Ashoka the Great, Prithviraj Chauhan, Aurangzeb, Shivaji of the Maratha Empire, Mohandas or Mahatma Gandhi, Indira Gandhi, Subhash Chandra Bose, Jawaharlal Nehru,
all the
Rabindranath
Gatumas.
Tagore, C.V. Raman, Satyendra Nath Bose, Bhagat Singh, Dr. A.P.J. Abdul Kalam, Shah Rukh Khan, Amitabh Bachchan, Amir Khan, Salman Khan.
Whoa, this guy looks like one.
APJ Abdul Kalam, Shah Rukh Khan, Amitabh Bachchan.
Oh my gosh. He looks like Raymond from Everybody Loves Raymond, but Indian. Ray Romano.
Amir Khan, Salman Khan, Priyana Chopra, Ben Kingsley, Sundar Pichai, Satya
Ben
Narayana
Kingsley's such a good
Nadella,
actor.
A.R. Rahman, Sachin Tendulkar, and Mahendra Singh Dhoni. There's also literally millions of other famous people I missed out on. If you want to mention them, please, there's a comment section below. Use it. In the meantime, we got to finish this info marathon, shall we?
What's next? This has been great.
Now, no surprise, India is huge and
Soviet
therefore has a
Union.
huge
They're in the,
international outreach when it comes to
they had a
diplomacy
friendship
to almost
deal in the
everyone,
Cold War.
except their immediate neighbors. First of all, countries with large population percentages of Hindus and
you didn't know
Indians
that.
like Fiji, Guyana, Suriname, Trinidad,
Not
and
full
Tobago,
allies, but they had
Mauritius,
a
and Malaysia typically
friendship
stay close to
deal.
India's roster of
Just to-
go-to friends.
basically
They
for
enjoy
India to
cordial
maintain its
relations with
independence
trade. Now,
and
the
try
UK
to
may
stay
have left on a
non-aligned
sour
during
note,
the
but they
Cold
still
War.
have a lot of ties to their former colonizer in terms of business and tourism. India is still part of the Commonwealth, not Commonwealth realm. There's a difference. And the UK has over 1.5 million citizens of Indian
Semantics.
descent. As mentioned in the China episode, China is kind of like India's "I'm only here to do business with you and nothing else" friend, as drama still hasn't subsided in regards to the territory conflicts.
Exactly,
Now, when it
they
comes to
got
the
a lot of
US,
territory
things started kind of sour back in the 70s during the Indo-Pak War of 1971, when the US sided with Pakistan, their arch nemesis. Today, relations have cooled off. Mostly, the US supports India's move towards democracy and is a key
Outsourcing all the
ally in
jobs to
military
India.
conflicts in the Middle
Service
East.
and
When it
tech.
comes to their best friends, however, most of the Indians I talked to have said Russia and Bhutan. Russia because during the Indo-Pak Wars, Russia came in and supported them, and ever since then, each country has held a high position of respect for the other, especially as global superpowers. Bhutan and India signed a treaty of friendship almost immediately after independence. The two countries have shared interests and a currency-pegged system as well. Bhutan even supported the annexation of their cousins in the Sikkim state into India, as it gave a nice buffer of land from China's stake to their claim. In conclusion, you will not find anywhere else on Earth like India. Thousands and millions of people inhabiting a colorful, majestic, green, slightly gritty at times slab of Earth, blessed and cursed in so many ways, yet wonderfully harmonized, mostly in a unity unlike anywhere else. In the end, that's India. Stay tuned, Indonesia is coming up next.
Sweet. Awesome. Let's wrap this up. Whew. Breathe, cough. That video was packed with geographic information there. I know how you try to do everything about India in 19 minutes, and that pace was incredible, but that was awesome. This is the first time I've covered geography now. I know they're very popular and cover so many different things. I mean, they name drop so many videos throughout that, but that was a dense coverage of that. And I could see with the geography now, they break down all the different types of geography, not just physical, but they said they political and demographic, graphic, human, cultural, all that kind of stuff. And that's hard to do with India, you know, maybe the most diverse place on the planet. So I don't know how you can do that with, you know, without, I mean, they miss so many things, but it's like, you have to. But that was awesome. That was really great. If you guys would like to see me cover more geography now stuff, because I love doing it even just for my personal benefit, but I love talk about geography too, then let me know which video should I be checking out. Let me know down in the comments, or better yet, come over to the Discord server, go over to the video suggestions channel and put that in there, because that's the best way for me to see it. It gets lost a lot of times in comments, unfortunately, but nevertheless, if enough people want to see it, you know, I'm going to cover it. So anyway, great to hit the geography stuff. Again, it's to me, it's always blended itself with history. You can't really learn one without the other. You can't learn geography without history. You can't learn history without geography. And they've always been one and the same, and passions of mine for my whole life. And you can see with something like India, like so much of that was by me. And, you know, I felt I knew okay amount, you know, but you could spend your whole life just studying India. I could do that for the rest of my life and fill it. Right, a whole career based off of Indian history and geography. So maybe in another life, right? But nevertheless, I'm going to keep studying it for sure, and hopefully you all enjoyed this. All right, with that, the original video is down below. If you have not subbed to it, to Geography Now, if you like this, I mean, obviously you're going to love their stuff too. And if you haven't subbed to my channel, I got a ton of content that's similar to this, and I think you'll like it too. So hopefully I earned that, and with that, we'll see you next time. Bye.